All right, we're going to talk about the strategy of using squares. This is a strategy that can help you get some of those harder multiplication facts, especially if you actually remember your squares. I know a lot of kids do remember their square facts more easily than some of the harder facts. Let's just take a look at what do I mean by a square. Here's an example up here. This is an array, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in each row, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows. So this array represents the multiplication fact 6 times 6, or 6 groups of 6. So when I'm talking about squares, I'm talking about when you have that factor in both places. So like 5 times 5, 6 times 6, 7 times 7, 8 times 8. A lot of kids remember those squares a little bit easier than some of the other facts. So you can use things that are easier for you to remember to help you with things that are more difficult for you to remember. And watch how I can use that square of 6 times 6 to help me with a harder fact. Say that I remember 6 times 6 is 36. I do remember my square is pretty good. If you don't really remember your squares, this might not be your favorite strategy, but for those of you that do, you might want to use this one. If you didn't know that 6 times 6 is 36, a real quick trick I can show you. It's not really a trick, it's actually math. If you had 6 groups of 5, you see how I'm boxing that in? 6 groups of 5. If you have a 5 fact, that 5 facts are pretty easy. That's 30 plus another 6 is 36. So that's how you can use a benchmark to 5, okay? But I do want to focus on what we're talking about, which is just using those squares, okay? So let's say I have 6 times 6 is 36. That's the square that I know. And I want to use that 6 times 6 to help me with a harder fact. I want the harder fact to be, let me bring in one more group of 6. So now, instead of having 6 times 6, now I have 7 groups of 6, or 7 times 6, right? So I'm going to use that fact that I know, that 6 times 6, and I'm going to use that to help me with 7 times 6, because I know that 7 is the same thing as 6 and 1 more. 6 and 1 more is 7. So I can think of 7 times 6 as 6 times 6. That's my square fact. Plus 1 times 6. That's that blue part. One more group of 6 to get 7 sixes, right? So if I'm trying to do 7 times 6, remember I know 6 times 6 is 36 plus another 6 can get me 7 sixes. Now when I'm adding 36 plus 6, I like to always get to the next 10 first. This is how I can do the math in my head a little bit quicker. I know that 6 and 4 make 10. So when I'm thinking this in my head, I break up that 6 even more into 4 and 2. I know 4 and 2 is the same thing as 6. But if I do that, I can do this in my head easier, because 36 and 4 will get me to 40, plus 2 more will get me to 42. So if I know that 6 times 6 is 36, then I know 7 times 6 would have a product of 42. So that's how you can use squares. Another example would be, say that you're trying to do 7 times 8. If you want to think 7 times 7 is 49, plus 1 more 7 would get me to 56. That can help you with 7 times 8. So using squares is just another strategy that you can use to help use the facts that you know to figure out facts that you might be working on still. Thanks, guys.